Rain streaks the classroom window, blurring the world outside. Maya's voice rises and falls as she reads her essay aloud, each word careful, each sentence defiant. The class sits rigid, eyes flickering from Maya to Ms. Grant, who stands at the front, red pen poised above the paper. The air is thick with expectation, the kind that makes every breath feel heavy. Ms. Grant interrupts, her tone clipped as she marks a line in Maya's essay. She doesn't look up, but her words land with a sting. Stick to what you know. A hush falls over the room. Maya's hand tightens around her notebook, knuckles pale. She meets Ms. Grant's gaze, steady but not challenging, and answers, "I am." The tension is electric, the kind that makes the walls feel closer. A pencil drops to the floor, breaking the moment. The girl in the back shifts in her seat, uncertain if she should look away or keep watching. Ms. Grant circles a word. In the margin, her lips pressed thin, her eyes hard to read. Maya's essay sits between them, a battleground of ink and intent. In the corner, a boy traces the edge of his desk, waiting for the storm to pass. Maya's mind drifts to her mother's voice at home, telling her to write the truth, no matter who tries to erase it. She remembers her grandmother's locket, warm against her skin, a quiet reminder of endurance. The rain grows louder, drowning out the clock's tick. Ms. Grant's reflection in the glass is fractured, her authority suddenly less certain. The bell rings, sharp and final. Maya closes her notebook, the cover creased from her grip. She stands, her movements measured, and walks out without a word. Ms. Grant watches her go, red pen trembling just slightly in her hand. The class exhales, but the tension lingers, a storm not quite spent. Before the story continues, please let us know from where you are watching this video. Write your city or country in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit like if you believe in stories that challenge injustice. Your engagement gives power to voices that need to be heard. After the classroom empties, Maya lingers at her desk, fingers running along the battered cover of her notebook. The room feels colder now, the rain outside a constant reminder that something has shifted. She opens her notebook, eyes tracing the red marks Ms. Grant left behind. Tucked between the pages, a faded photograph of her grandmother slips out, her face stern. Proud, holding an old typewriter, Maya presses the photo flat, drawing quiet strength from the woman's gaze. Ms. Grant stands at the doorway, watching. The confidence she wore earlier is gone, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. She steps inside, her shoes barely making a sound on the scratched linoleum. For a moment, she hesitates, eyes darting from Maya to the open notebook. The silence between them is thick, filled with everything unspoken. Maya's pencil moves across the page, rewriting a line Ms. Grant had crossed out. The words are sharper now, more certain. She pauses, aware of Ms. Grant's presence, but doesn't look up. The teacher's eyes narrow, trying to read the new words, but Maya shields them with her hand. The bell rings again in the hallway, laughter and footsteps echoing, but inside the room, time stands still. Maya gathers her things, slipping the photograph and notebook into her bag. As she heads for the door, she glances back. Ms. Grant's posture is rigid, arms folded tightly across her chest. On the desk, the notebook sits open, a single page fluttering in the draft from the hallway. Ms. Grant reaches for it, her hand hovering above the paper, but she doesn't touch it. Instead, she watches as Maya disappears down the hall, the image of the girl and her secret words lingering in her mind. The cracks in her certainty are small, but they are there. Growing wider with every step Maya takes away from her, the hallway buzzes with a different kind of energy as students spill from classrooms, voices low but urgent. Photocopied pages of Maya's essay pass from hand to hand, corners smudged, lines highlighted in neon. A white student glances over the words and scoffs, overdramatic, but his voice lacks conviction. Nearby, a black girl leans in, whispering. To her friend, she's right though. Every word, Maya walks through the center of the crowd, her head held high, but her eyes searching. The usual chatter quiets as she passes. Some students offer her a nod, others look away, uncertain whether to offer support or keep their distance. The tension is new, raw, and it clings to their movements. A boy at his locker folds the essay carefully and tucks it into his backpack, as if saving it for later. Ms. Grant stands near the faculty lounge. Coffee cup in hand, watching the shifting tide, She notices the way students cluster, the way their eyes dart her way and then quickly look elsewhere. Her grip on the cup tightens, knuckles pale. She overhears a teacher muttering to another. That's the girl from Grant's class. The words sting, sharper than any critique she's given. At the far end of the hall, the principal's door stands open. A secretary slides a meeting request onto the desk, but it goes unnoticed amid the growing buzz. Maya pauses by her locker, feeling the weight of the stairs and the hope in the whispers. She doesn't say a word, but her presence alone is enough to shift the atmosphere. As the bell rings for the next class, the crowd thins, but the whispers remain. Maya's essay has become more than an assignment. It's a spark, and the hallway is alive with the possibility that something might finally change. Ms. Grant retreats to her office. The hallway noise fading behind her, she moves to the metal filing cabinet in the corner, its surface dented from years of use. Her hand shakes slightly as she unlocks the top drawer and slides it open, the files inside packed tight. She searches for Maya's folder, the tab marked in bold ink. Pulling it out, she flips through the contents, essays labeled Defiant, notes from meetings, and a photo of Maya sitting alone at lunch. Eyes downcast, she pauses over a disciplinary report. Remembering the staff meeting where colleagues nodded along as she described Maya as challenging, the memory feels different, now less certain, more exposed. She sets the folder on her desk, glancing at the stack of similar files, each one a record of a student who never quite fit her expectations. A flashback surfaces, a younger Ms. Grant, standing before her own teacher. She remembers the praise for her average essay, the way her black classmates' work was overlooked, dismissed as too emotional. The realization settles in her, chest heavy and uncomfortable. She wonders how many times she's repeated the same pattern without ever questioning it. She slams the drawer shut, the sound sharp in the quiet room. The framed Teacher of the Year award rattles on the wall. Threatening to fall, Ms. Grant steadies it, her reflection warped in the glass. She looks older, more tired than she remembers. The office feels smaller, the air thick with regret. Outside, the laughter of students drifts in, a reminder that the world is moving on. Ms. Grant sits at her desk, Maya's file open before her, the evidence of years of routine decisions laid bare. For the first time, she sees the shadows cast by her own hand, and she isn't sure how to step out of them. Night settles over the city, windows glowing in scattered apartments. Maya sits at her desk, the battered typewriter from her grandmother, steady beneath her fingers. She types with purpose, each word a small rebellion, each page a shield. The stack beside her grows her novel, titled What I Know. Taking shape in the quiet hours, when the world feels far away, she pauses, reading. Over a paragraph about a girl who refuses to be erased. Her mother's footsteps echo in the hallway, pausing at Maya's door. "You're still up?" she asks, voice gentle. Maya nods, not looking up, her focus unbroken. "Almost done," she replies, determined in her tone. Her mother lingers, watching her daughter's silhouette, pride and worry mingling in her eyes before she turns away across town. Ms. Grant sits at her dining table, papers spread before her. She grades with practiced efficiency, but her mind drifts. She opens her laptop and clicks on a link. Viral writing contest winner announced that day. The page loads slowly, then reveals the winner's name. The author photo, APPEARSM's Grant's breath catches. She recognizes Maya's eyes, even under the pen name. She scrolls through the excerpt, her face illuminated by the screen's cold light. The words are powerful, raw, unmistakably Maya's. She checks the submission date 2 days before the essay incident. The realization hits. Maya had already claimed her voice, long before Ms. Grant tried to silence it. Maya finishes the last line of her draft, hands trembling with exhaustion and relief. She looks out the window, city lights flickering like distant stars. For the first time, she feels seen not by her teacher, but by herself. Down the hall, her mother quietly closes her own notebook, hoping to settle in her chest. Ms. Grant arrives early, the school still quiet, and unlocks her desk drawer with a practiced motion. Inside, a folder labeled Issues sits atop the others, its edges worn from frequent handling. She pulls it out, flipping through the pages with a mixture of routine and unease. Maya's name appears first, circled in red, followed by notes: disruptive, argumentative, lacks focus. Each comment feels harsher in the morning light. She adds a new page: Maya's contest entry, printed from the school website. The title, bold and unapologetic, stands out against the others. Ms. Grant hesitates, pen hovering above the words disciplinary action. Her hand falters, the ink refusing to flow. She sets the pen down, staring at the list of students who have passed through her class. Each one reduced to a few lines of criticism. A knock at the door startles her. Mr. Alvarez, the math teacher, pokes his head in. He glances at the folder, then at Ms. Grant. "Everything all right?" he asks, concern flickering across his face. She forces a smile, closing the folder and sliding it back into the drawer. "Just catching up," she replies, voice tight. He nods, but his eyes linger on the drawer before he leaves. Left alone, Ms. Grant opens the drawer again, unable to let it rest. She flips to an old note from a former student, words of thanks scrawled in blue ink. It's a stark contrast to the red marks that fill Maya's file. For a moment, she wonders what she's really accomplished, what legacy she's leaving behind. She closes the drawer with more force than intended, the sound echoing in the empty room. The folder remains, a silent record of every student she's misunderstood, every voice she's tried to quiet. The weight of it settles in her chest, heavier than she expected. Maya sits at her desk late into the night, the room lit only by a small lamp and the glow of determination in her eyes. Her fingers move quickly over the battered keys of her grandmother's typewriter, each letter striking the page with purpose. The faded photograph of her grandmother stands propped beside the machine, her gaze steady and proud, as if watching over every word that forms. The air is thick with the scent of old paper and ink, a quiet testament to generations who refuse to be silenced. Scattered across the desk are stacks of rejection letters, their corners bent and edges worn from being read and reread. Each one is a reminder of doors closed, voices dismissed, dreams deferred. Yet tonight, one envelope stands out from the rest thicker, official, promising something different. Maya's hands tremble as she tears it open, heart pounding. The word winner leaps from the page, bold and undeniable. A small, genuine smile breaks through her usual reserve, a rare moment of triumph in a world that so often tries to keep her in the shadows. From the hallway, her mother's voice drifts, in gentle but firm, "Keep going, no matter what they say." Maya nods to herself, the words settling over her like a blessing. The clatter of the typewriter grows louder, filling the room with a steady rhythm of resistance and hope. Each page that emerges carries not just her story, but the weight of every woman in her family who was told to stay quiet. Across town, Ms. Grant sits at her kitchen table, red pen in hand, grading papers with mechanical precision. Her phone buzzes with a notification, a viral announcement of a writing contest winner. The name Alina Rivers appears, accompanied by a photograph that makes her pause. She reads the excerpt, her face draining of color as she recognizes Maya's voice. Strong and unfiltered, already reaching far beyond the classroom's walls. The morning hallway is alive with a new energy. Students cluster in small groups, heads bent over photocopied pages of Maya's essay. The words are passed hand to hand, some lines underlined, others circled, as if everyone is searching for a piece of themselves in her story. A black boy at his locker catches Maya's eye and gives her a subtle nod, rare gesture of respect that says more than words ever could. Down the row, a Latina girl mouths, "Thank you." Before slipping the essay into her backpack, Maya moves through the crowd, her steps measured, her face composed. The usual whispers that once trailed her now carry a different tone: admiration, curiosity, even a hint of awe. She hears fragments as she passes. "Did you read what she wrote? It's about all of us." She finally said it. The atmosphere is charged, every glance and gesture loaded with meaning. Near the faculty lounge, Ms. Grant stands with a cooling cup of coffee, watching the shifting dynamic. She notices how students keep their distance, how their conversations hush when she draws near. Her authority, once unquestioned, feels brittle. She overhears a teacher remark, "She's the one who wrote that piece." The comment lands with a sting, leaving Ms. Grant uneasy and exposed. At the far end of the corridor, the principal's office door stands ajar. A secretary slides a meeting request onto the desk, but the principal is too distracted by the growing buzz outside. Maya pauses by her locker, feeling the weight of new expectations and the hope in every quiet exchange. She doesn't need to speak. Her presence alone is enough to shift the balance. As the bell rings, the crowd disperses, but the impact remains. Maya's words have sparked something bigger than herself, sense of unity, a rallying point for those who have waited too long to be heard. Long after the rest of the house has gone quiet, Maya sits at her desk, the glow of her lamp painting shadows on the wall. She writes with a fierce intensity, the battered keys of her grandmother's typewriter echoing softly in the night. Each sentence is a small act of defiance, a way to reclaim the space she's been denied. Pages pile up beside her, of a girl who refuses to disappear, growing thicker with every hour. She pauses, rubbing her eyes, and glances at the stack of rejection slips taped to the wall. Instead of discouragement, they fuel her determination. Her mind returns to the hallway earlier that doth a nod from the boy at his locker, the whispered gratitude from the girl. Their support lingers, a quiet chorus urging her on. Maya types. Faster, her words sharper, her voice clearer. This isn't just her story anymore, it's a weapon, forged for everyone who's ever been told to stay silent. On the other side of town, Ms. Grant sits at her kitchen table, papers spread out before her. She grades mechanically, her thoughts elsewhere. Her phone vibrates with a notification of students tweet about a new author who gets it. She clicks the link, reading the excerpt. The words are unmistakably Maya's, raw, honest, unfiltered. Ms. Grant's hand trembles as she sets the phone down, realization dawning that the narrative she tried to control has already slipped beyond. Her reach, Maya finishes a chapter, her hands aching but her spirit unbroken. She looks out the window, the city lights flickering in the distance. For the first time, she feels the power of her own voice, the possibility that her story might change more than just herself. The manuscript grows, page by page, a testament to resistance that no one can erase. Maya sits at her desk, the manuscript complete, her heart pounding with a mix of pride and fear. She stares at the contest submission form on her screen, the cursor blinking beside author name. Her real name feels like a risk a target she's unwilling to paint on herself again. She hesitates, then types, Alina Rivers. The name feels strange, almost borrowed, but it carries a promise of safety and a chance to be seen for her words, not her face. Each sheet is a piece of herself, but now they'll travel under a new identity. Maya seals the envelope, pressing the flap closed with a sense of finality. At the door, her mother watches, sensing the weight of the moment. "You sure?" she asks. Maya nods, not trusting her voice. Her mother squeezes her shoulder, silent support in her touch outside. The rain blurs the streetlights as Maya walks to the mailbox. She hesitates before slipping the envelope in, her breath fogging in the night air. She whispers the pen name one more time, as if to make it real, then lets the envelope drop. The clang of the mailbox door is louder than she expects, echoing. In the quiet street, across town, Ms. Grant scrolls through the list of contest entries on her laptop. She pauses at the name Alina Rivers, drawn by the style of writing so familiar, so pointed. Her finger hovers over the report button, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. The rain outside her window distorts the world beyond, making everything feel unsteady. Maya stands in the rain for a moment, letting it wash over her. She turns for home, knowing that, whatever happens next, her words are finally out. They're free, unmasked, and impossible to take back. Morning sunlight filters through the blinds. As Maya wakes to the buzz of her phone, notifications flood her screen texts, emails, social media alerts piling up faster than she can read them. She blinks, confusion giving way to disbelief as she sees her pen name trending, Alina Rivers. Friends tag her in posts. Classmates share screenshots of an excerpt from her novel. The words she wrote in secret are everywhere, lines highlighted, and quoted her story echoing far beyond the classroom walls. At school, the atmosphere is electric. Students huddle in corners, phones held high, reading aloud passages that once lived only in Maya's notebook. "Did you see this?" someone asks, holding up a phone. "That's Maya's style, right?" Another student nods, eyes wide. "It's her, it has to be." The principal's office is a flurry of activity. staff members whispering as the school board schedules an emergency meeting.ms. Grant stands at her desk, frozen as she scrolls through her own feed. Her face appears in a student's viral post, tagged with the line, "This is what they tried to erase." She sets her phone down, hands trembling. The classroom feels smaller, the walls closing in as students glance her way, their expressions a mix of curiosity and accusation. Maya walks the halls, head high. Whispers follow her admiring, questioning, some even apologetic. For the first time, the power dynamic has shifted. She's no longer invisible, no longer just a name in a folder. Her words have become a rallying cry, a spark that ignites conversations in every corner of the building. By afternoon, the excerpt has reached thousands, then millions. Maya's story, once confined to late nights and hidden drafts, now belongs to everyone. The world is watching, and nothing will ever be the same. Ms. Grant sits at her desk, the gradebook open before her, columns of letters and numbers staring back. Her eyes scan the names, her favorites marked with high marks. Maya's row, a string of average grades. She hesitates, finger tracing the line beside Maya's name, remembering every time she marked her down for being too bold, off-topic, unpolished. The realization creeps in, cold and unwelcome. It was never about the work. A flashback surfaces. She's a young teacher, praised for her potential by a supervisor who never once acknowledged her black colleague's lesson plan. The memory lingers, sharp and unsettling. She closes the gradebook, but it won't stay shut. The projector across the room flickers to life, students gathering for class. On the screen, someone has cast a quote from Maya's novel. "You can't grade away the truth." The students turn eyes fixed on the words. Then on Ms. Grant, their faces are expectant, some defiant, others quietly hopeful. She feels exposed, the authority she once wielded slipping through her fingers. A student in the front row leans forward, notebook open, pen poised not to take notes. But to record what happens next, Ms. Grant clears her throat, but the words catch. She tries to move on with the lesson, but the energy in the room has changed. The usual routine feels hollow, her voice smaller than she remembers. She glances at Maya's empty seat, the absence more powerful than any presence. As the bell rings, students file out, some pausing to glance back. The quote remains on the screen, bright and unyielding. Ms. Grant sits alone. The gradebook still open, haunted by the ghosts of decisions made in haste, and the realization that the past cannot be erased with a simple mark. Maya sits at the kitchen table, her manuscript beside her, the buzz of her phone fading into the background. Her mother enters quietly, carrying a weathered journal. She places it in front of Maya, her hands gentle but firm. "This was mine," she says, voice steady. "I started stories. I never finished. They told me not to bother." Maya runs her fingers over the faded cover, feeling the grooves of her mother's name pressed into the leather. Her mother sits across from her, eyes shining with pride and a hint of regret. "They'll try to erase you," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you keep writing, even if your hands shake. Even if they say it's not your place, write anyway." The words hang between them, heavy with history and hope. Maya opens the journal, flipping through pages filled with half-written stories. She sees herself in those lines, her doubts, her determination, her longing to be heard. She glances up, meeting her mother's gaze. "I was scared," Maya admits. "I still am." Her mother reaches across the table, squeezing her hand. "That's how you know it matters." The house is quiet, but the air is alive with possibility. Maya returns to her desk, the journal open beside her manuscript. The typewriter's keys click beneath her fingers, each word a promise to her mother and herself. She writes with new purpose, her voice steadier, her resolve stronger. The rejection slips on the wall lose their power. The stories in the journal become seeds for something greater. In the next room, her mother listens to the rhythm of the typewriter, a small smile playing at her lips. She knows the world may not change overnight, but tonight, her daughter's words are unstoppable. The auditorium fills with restless students, teachers lining the walls, the air charged with anticipation. Maya stands backstage, clutching the microphone, her palms damp. The principal steps forward, voice echoing through the hall. Today, we honor the author whose words have changed this school. The crowd stirs, whispers darting from row to ROWM's Grant sits in the front, program crumpled in her lap, eyes fixed on the stage. Maya steps into the light, heart pounding. Her gaze sweeps the crowds, some faces eager, others wary, a few defiant. She draws a breath, steadying herself. They said, "My story didn't matter," she begins, voice clear but trembling. "But I wrote it anyway." Phones rise, screens glowing as students record. The words ripple outward, reaching corners of the room that have never truly listened before. Ms. Grant shifts in her seat, fingers digging into the paper. Her Teacher of the Year pin slips from her jacket, clattering to the floor. She doesn't move to pick it up. Instead, she watches Maya, her expression caught between regret and realization. The students lean in, some nodding, others blinking back tears. The auditorium is silent except for Maya's voice, each sentence building on the last. Maya glances toward her mother, standing in the back, pride shining in her eyes. This is for everyone who is told to be quiet, for everyone who is told to wait their turn, for everyone who is told to shrink. Her words hang in the air, heavy and electric. As Maya finishes, the room erupts in applause. Some students stand, others wipe their eyes. The principal steps forward, shaking Maya's hand. Ms. Grant sits motionless, the fallen pin at her feet, her sense of authority quietly slipping away. The assembly disperses, but the impact lingers. Truth, once spoken, cannot be taken back. Ms. Grant sits alone at her desk, the blue light of her laptop washing her face in uneasy shadows. Her inbox is overflowing messages, forwarded screenshots. Attached, subject lines filled with her name. Each click reveals another thread, private comments, offhand remarks, and judgments she thought would stay behind closed doors. The evidence is everywhere now, not just whispered in hallways, but documented, shared, impossible to take back. She hesitates over the keyboard, deleting one message, then another, but the stream never stops. Her hand trembles as she scrolls, the weight of exposure settling on her shoulders. Outside her office, footsteps pause, voices drop. A colleague knocks, peering in with a worried look. "Are you all right?" The question hangs in the air, unanswered. Ms. Grant nods, but her voice fails her. The colleague lingers for a moment, then leaves, the door clicking shut with a finality that feels personal. Down the corridor, the school board gathers in a small conference room, papers shuffled, faces tight with concern. They speak in low tones, glancing occasionally at the door. A decision is made, a diversity audit, a public statement, a quiet but unmistakable reckoning. Ms. Grant's reputation, once a shield, now unravels in the hands of those who once stood. By her dot, back in her office, she drafts a letter of explanation, the words blurring as doubt creeps in. The cursor blinks an impatient metronome. She reads the draft, then deletes it, unable to justify what can't be defended. Outside, students pass by their conversations, a mix of hope and caution. The energy in the halls changed. The familiar world feels distant, the walls closing in. Ms. Grant leans back, eyes closed, the quiet now heavier than any applause she ever received. On her desk, the red pen lies untouched, a silent reminder of a power that slipped away without a sound. Maya's book rests prominently in the school library, its cover bright and inviting among the shelves. The old reading list has been replaced. New titles reflecting diverse voices and stories that resonate with the students' experiences. A young black teacher stands before a group, her voice steady as she guides a discussion on Maya's themes of resilience and identity. Students listen intently, their eyes bright with curiosity and understanding. Questions rise, thoughtful and probing, breaking the silence that once filled these halls. The classroom feels alive, a space transformed by stories that speak to truth. And hope. Ms. Grant's former classroom sits empty, dust gathering on the desk where red pens once marked papers. The chair remains pushed in, untouched, a silent testament to a chapter closed. The typewriter, once a symbol of Maya's quiet rebellion, now sits displayed in the library, a monument to voices that refuse to be silenced. In the hallway, students pass by, some pausing to glance at the display. A group gathers, discussing the impact of Maya's work, their voices a mix of excitement and reflection. The school feels different, lighter, more open, a place where every story has a chance to be heard. The camera lingers on Maya's book, the pages turning slowly in the hands of a young reader. Outside, the sun casts warm light through the windows, a quiet promise of change and new beginnings. The librarian, a middle-aged woman with a gentle smile, watches the students with quiet pride. She adjusts a display card highlighting Maya's journey from student to author, her eyes reflecting the significance of this moment. Nearby, a group of teachers discuss the new curriculum, their voices low but hopeful, acknowledging the shift in perspective that Maya's story has inspired. Ms. Grant walks past the library, her steps slower now. She pauses, glancing at the typewriter encased in glass. Her expression is unreadable, a mixture of regret and acceptance. She doesn't enter, but the moment marks a subtle acknowledgement of change. Ms. Grant sits alone in her office. A single essay before her, red pen, poised above the paper. The room is quiet, the usual bustle of the school day replaced by a heavy stillness. She reads the student's words, thoughtful, raw, unguarded. For the first time, she hesitates, the urge to correct replaced by a lingering doubt. Her hand hovers, but she can't bring herself to mark the page. On the corner of her desk, Maya's book lies open, a passage highlighted. They never saw me coming. Ms. Grant traces the words with her finger, her reflection wavering in the glossy cover. She glances at the essay again, realizing that every mark she's ever made was more than just a correction, it was a judgment. A gate kept closed. Outside, the hallway is alive with the sound of students moving on, their laughter and conversation. A reminder that the world is changing. Ms. Grant sets the red pen down, the gesture small but final. She leaves the essay unmarked, the page clean, untouched by her authority. She sits back, eyes closed, letting the weight of her choices settle down. The hall, Maya signs a copy of her book for a freshman, the student's eyes wide with admiration. The library display glows in the afternoon sun. The typewriter, a silent witness to the journey from resistance to recognition. Teachers gather in the lounge discussing the new curriculum, their voices hopeful, looking forward instead of back. Ms. Grant stands, gathering her things. She glances once more at the unmarked essay, then steps into the hallway, her presence smaller, her role transformed. The red pen remains on the desk, a relic of a past that can't be rewritten, but a future that no longer needs her approval. The auditorium is packed, students shifting in their seats, teachers lining the walls. The lights dim and a hush falls over the crowd. Changed our school. A spotlight sweeps across the stage, landing on Maya as she steps forward, clutching her book. Her heart pounds, but she stands tall, eyes scanning the room for her mother, who watches from the back, hands clasped tight. Maya's classmates lean forward, anticipation etched on their faces. Ms. Grant sits in the front row, program crumpled. In her lap, jaw tight, the principal's words echo. Our mystery author is Maya Brooks. Maya takes a breath. Microphone. Trembling in her grip, she begins, her voice clear, but trembling. They said, my story didn't matter, but I wrote it anyway. Phones rise, screens glowing as students record. She doesn't move to pick it up, her authority slipping away with every word Maya speaks. Maya's gaze sweeps the crowd, landing on faces both familiar and new. This is for everyone who was told to shrink, to wait, to be quiet. For everyone who felt invisible. Her words hang in the air, heavy and electric. The applause grows, some students rising to their feet, others wiping their eyes. The principal steps forward, shaking Maya's hand. His smile, genuine. Ms. Grant sits motionless, the broken pen at her feet, her sense of control quietly dissolving. The assembly disperses, but the impact lingers, a truth spoken in the light, impossible to ignore or erase. Maya stands at the podium, the crowd's applause fading into an expectant hush. She grips the microphone, her knuckles white, and opens her mouth to speak. Suddenly, a burst of feedback screeches through the speakers, making everyone flinch. The sound lingers, sharp and uncomfortable, before the room settles again. Maya's eyes close for a moment, steadying herself. She waits for the tension to pass, refusing to let the disruption rattle her. Ms. Grant shifts in her seat, stifling laughter, others biting their lips in anticipation. The principal steps forward, adjusting the microphone, his hands shaking just slightly. "Go ahead, Maya," he says softly, his voice barely carrying past the front row. Maya nods, her voice returning, quiet but unwavering. They said, "My voice didn't matter." The words land heavy. A wave of stillness washes over the auditorium, the kind that makes every breath feel loud. Ms. Grant's grip tightens on her program, the paper bending under her fingers. She scribbles in the margin, the word "untrue" bleeding through the page. But her protest is silent, lost in the charged atmosphere. A teacher in the back leans forward, her eyes shining with something like hope. A student near the aisle presses record on her phone, capturing the moment. Maya's gaze sweeps the crowd, meeting the eyes of classmates who once looked past her. "I'm here," she says, her voice gaining strength. The principal steps aside, giving Maya the stage. The feedback is forgotten, replaced by a new kind of energy, one that belongs to Maya now. Ms. Grant sits back, her authority shrinking. The room, once ruled by her corrections, now listens. To Maya, every word a challenge to the old order. Maya looks out over the auditorium, her hands steadying on the podium as she opens her book. The crowd leans forward, anticipation thick in the air. She reads the first line, her voice clear. "Silence is a weapon." In the gravity of her statement, a black teacher in the back row nods slowly, understanding the weight behind the words. Ms. Grant's heel taps against the floor, the rhythm uneven. She remembers marking Maya's essay as too angry, dismissing the pain behind the prose. Now those same words command the room, impossible to brush aside. Maya's classmates watch her, some with admiration, others with regret for not standing by her sooner. A student in the front row lifts her phone, live streaming the moment. The number of viewers climbs, the event spilling beyond the walls of the school. Maya's voice doesn't falter. She continues, "We're taught to wait, to lower our eyes, to let others speak for us. But silence is not safety, it's surrender." Ms. Grant's collar feels tight, her confidence slipping away. She shifts in her seat, trying to maintain composure, but the energy in the room is no longer hers to control. The students listen, transfixed, as Maya's words cut through the old rules and expectations. The bell outside rings, muffled behind the closed doors, but no one moves. Reclaims the space with every sentence. Her voice, once overlooked, is now the heartbeat of the room. The first sentence lingers, a promise that the silence is over and the truth will be heard. Maya's words hang in the air, her hand unconsciously reaching for the Teacher of the Year pin on her lapel. Her fingers fumble, the clasp slipping. The pin tumbles to the floor, landing with a sharp metallic clink that slices through the quiet. Glance at Ms. Grant, but she doesn't move to retrieve it. Maya continues, her voice unwavering. "But weapons can be reclaimed." The sentence lands with force, the audience drawn tighter into her orbit. In the back, a janitor quietly sweeps the aisle, pausing as the pin rolls near his feet. He nudges it aside, eyes meeting Ms. Grant's. For a brief moment, a silent acknowledgement of the shift-empowered Ms. Grant's hand returns to her lapel, now empty. She feels exposed, her authority slipping away with the loss of that small symbol. Her posture stiffens, but her face betrays a flicker of uncertainty. Her focus is on the pin, the object that once represented her control. Now out of reach, students exchange glances, recognizing the moment for what it is, a turning point. The mask Ms. Grant wore for years, the confidence she wielded in every correction and critique, has cracked. The auditorium senses it, the old order dissolving in the wake of Maya's truth. As Maya finishes her reading, the camera lingers on the pin, sits back, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her role in the story forever changed. As Maya's final words echo across the auditorium, a sea of phones rises, screens glowing in the dim light. Students record, fingers trembling, knowing they are witnessing something bigger than a school assembly. The hashtag silence is OAPON. Flashes across social media, the moment spreading beyond the walls in real time. Every angle, every word, is captured and shared, the story multiplying with each post. Ms. Grant's face appears in the background of dozens of videos, her discomfort magnified by the lens. She shifts in her seat, eyes darting from the stage to the students, capturing her reaction. The principal catches the school board's gaze, both understanding that this is no longer just a student's speech, it's a reckoning. Teachers at the edge of the room exchange glances, some hopeful, others uneasy. As the old rules begin to crumble, a banner behind Maya reads our voices, the letters bold and unmissable. The crowd buzzes with energy, students whispering, "She did it!" And this changes everything. Maya stands taller, the spotlight no longer intimidating but empowering. Her classmates, once silent, now cheer. Their support unmistakable. Ms. Grant lowers her head, the weight of the moment pressing down. Her authority, once unquestioned, is now just another image in the background, a relic of a system that's being rewritten in real time. She realizes she can't control the narrative anymore. The students have claimed it as their own. As the assembly ends, the videos continue to circulate, reaching thousands, then millions. Maya's story and the truth she spoke become a rallying point for students everywhere. The auditorium empties, but the digital torch has been lit, and the world is watching. The power has shifted, and it's not going back. The applause fades, but Maya remains at the podium for a moment, taking in the faces lit by phone screens and hope. She steps back, leaving the microphone humming softly in the empty space. The spotlight lingers on the vacant podium, a symbol of authority that now belongs to the students, not the staff. The principal returns to the stage, his voice steady, as he announces, "Starting today, our curriculum will change." The words ripple through the crowd, met with a new round of applause this time. It's not just for Maya, but for the promise of something better. Ms. Grant rises from her seat, her chair scraping against the floor. She stands uncertain as students and teachers ignore her presence. The badge clipped to her bag, once a mark of distinction, now feels like a burden. She glances at her resume, peeking from the folder she clutches. Dates circled in red, reminders of years spent upholding rules that no longer fit. For the first time, she considers what it means to step aside in the wings. Teachers gather in small groups, their conversations hushed but urgent. Some discuss new lesson plans. Others share memories of students they once overlooked. The energy is different, now possibly replacing resignation. Maya joins her classmates at the edge of the stage, her confidence contagious, her presence a quiet invitation for others to speak up. The crowd begins to disperse, but the empty podium remains, bathed in light. It stands as a silent invitation for new voices, a challenge to anyone who would try to reclaim the old order. Ms. Grant lingers at the edge of the room. Watching as her influence fades into the background, she doesn't step forward. The power has moved on, and the school feels it. As the last students file out of the auditorium, Ms. Grant slips through a side door, her footsteps echoing down the empty hallway. The sound of her heels, once a signal of authority, now rings hollow against the linoleum. She passes bulletin boards covered in flyers for Maya's book signing, her own achievements buried beneath layers of new announcements. The school feels unfamiliar, transformed by voices she once tried to contain. She reaches her classroom, the door sticking before it swings open. Inside, red pens are scattered across the desk, abandoned in her rush to leave for the assembly. She gathers them, but pauses when she notices Maya's file missing from the drawer. The space where it once sat is empty. A silent acknowledgement that some stories can't be contained by paperwork anymore. Ms. Grant glances at the window, her reflection fragmented by streaks of rain. She looks older, worn down by the weight of choices she can't take back. Downstairs, the sound of laughter drifts up from the library, where Maya signs copies of her book for a line of eager students. The sunlight catches her smile, the room alive with possibility. A custodian enters, nodding politely as he sweeps around Ms. Grant's feet. He pauses, noticing the red pens in her hand, then moves on without a word. The moment is brief, but it stings a reminder that her role in this place has changed. Ms. Grant leaves the classroom, closing the door softly behind her. The hallway is empty, her footsteps fading as she walks away from the world she once ruled. Outside, the day is bright, the school alive with new energy. She doesn't look back. The future belongs to voices she can't control. The cafeteria is buzzing with conversation, but Maya sits quietly at a table near the window, her book open in front of her. A steady stream of students approaches, some offering shy smiles, others simply nodding in acknowledgement. She signs a few copies, her hands steady, her words thoughtful. Across the room, a girl lingers at the edge of the crowd, clutching a folded piece of paper. She hesitates, then weaves through the tables, her steps uncertain. When she reaches Maya, she doesn't speak. Instead, she slides the note across the table, her eyes darting away. Maya unfolds it, reading the careful handwriting. "You made me brave." The words are simple, but they land with a weight that makes Maya's breath catch. She looks up, but the girl is already gone, disappearing into the crowd before Maya can thank her. Maya tucks the note into her book, fingers lingering on the paper. The message is more than gratitude. It's a sign that her story has become a lifeline for someone else. Around her, the noise of the cafeteria fades, replaced by a sense of connection that runs deeper than applause or headlines. She glances out the window, watching the sunlight dance across the floor, feeling the quiet strength in knowing she's not alone. Across town, Ms. Grant sits in her car, the radio playing an interview with Maya. The young author's voice is calm, determined. "This is just the start. I hope others find the courage to tell their stories too." Ms. Grant turns the volume down, the words lingering in the air. She grips the steering wheel, the reality of her new place in the world settling in. Back in the cafeteria, Maya smiles. Softly, the note still warm in her hand. She knows the journey isn't over, but for the first time, she feels the ripple of change moving outward. One voice at a time, merging with the rows of polished awards and plaques. She pauses, catching sight of her own name etched on a faded excellence in teaching trophy, now pushed to the back behind newer, shinier accolades. Next to it, a freshly mounted plaque reads, "Maya Brooks, alumni author for Changing." The conversation, the glass reflects both names, side by side, but the contrast is unmistakable. A student walks by, glancing at the display. He smirks, repeating a phrase that once belonged to Ms. Grant. "Stick to what you know." His tone is mocking, but not cruel, just matter-of-fact, as if the power behind those words has finally been stripped away. Ms. Grant's cheeks flush, and she looks down, suddenly aware of how small her presence feels in the corridor she once owned. Inside the case, Maya's book sits upright, its cover bright against the muted tones of old trophies. A group of students gathers, pointing and discussing the new edition. Their excitement is genuine, their voices rising in admiration. Ms. Grant lingers, watching as the librarian unlocks the case to adjust the display, making room for more books, more stories, more names that will never be erased. She turns away, the sound of the lock clicking behind her. The hallway feels longer than before, the distance between past and present stretched by every step. The reflection in the glass lingers in her mind, her legacy now a question mark, her authority replaced by the undeniable impact of Maya's voice. As she moves on, the voices of students echo down the hall, filled with hope and possibility. The world she knew has shifted, and in its place stands a new standard one, built not on old illusions, but on the courage to speak, to listen, and to change. The final bell rings, its sound lingering in the air, longer than usual. Students don't rush for the exits. Instead, they gather in small groups, their conversations alive with talk of Maya's speech and the changes sweeping through the school. Teachers stand by the doors, exchanging glances that carry both relief and uncertainty. The old routines have shifted, replaced by a sense of anticipation and possibility. In the main hallway, the janitor quietly removes Ms. Grant's nameplate from the classroom door. He replaces it with a new sign, Diversity and Inclusion Office. Students stop to flip through its pages. She stands in the doorway for a moment, taking in the quiet, then turns away, her footsteps soft on the polished floor. The world she once controlled is gone, her story no longer just her own. The last bell has rung, but its call is not an ending, it's the start of something new. A rhythm that promises every voice will finally be heard. The teacher's lounge, once a place of easy chatter and shared jokes, feels colder now. Ms. Grant sits alone at the corner table, her phone screen casting a pale glow on her face. She scrolls through headlines and social media posts, each one a reminder of how quickly her world has changed. Maya's name appears over and over celebrated, quoted, admired. The words Ms. Grant, once dismissed as too much, are now being shared by thousands. Colleagues enter in pairs. The coffee pot gurgles in the background, but no one offers to pour her a cup. Ms. Grant's coffee sits untouched. Growing cold beside a stack of untouched lesson plans, she glances at the Teacher of the Year plaque she once displayed with pride, then quickly looks away, pretending to read an email. Of her fading influence, she sees photos of Maya at the book signing, surrounded by students who once filled her classroom. A janitor enters, sweeping crumbs from the floor. He pauses, offering Ms. Grant a sympathetic nod before moving on. The gesture is small, but it stings. She looks around the lounge, realizing that the space no longer belongs to her. The laughter, the camaraderie, the sense of belonging, all of it has shifted, leaving her on the outside looking in. Ms. Grant locks her phone and gathers her things, her movements slow. She leaves the lounge without a word, the door swinging, shut behind her, the sound echoing in the emptiness she leaves behind. Maya stands in the doorway of her old classroom, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across empty desks. The room is quiet, stripped of the usual noise and energy. Writes a message in careful looping script. Thank you for making me work harder. She tears a sheet from her notebook, folds it neatly, and tucks it inside the book. Maya lingers for a moment, letting her gaze travel over the posters on the walls, the faded motivational quotes, the red pen marks still visible on the whiteboard. She remembers the sting of criticism, the weight of being told to stick to what you know. Now, her words fill the space, a quiet victory echoing in the stillness. She straightens a stack of papers on a nearby desk, a small gesture of respect for the place where she learned to fight for her voice. As she prepares to leave, Maya glances back at the desk. The book sits there, a silent offering, part forgiveness, part challenge. She knows Ms. Grant will find it and wonders how the note will land, as a comfort, a regret, or a call to change. The uncertainty lingers, but Maya feels lighter, her burden eased by the act of letting go. Outside the classroom, the hallway is alive with the sounds of a new day. Maya steps out, closing the door gently behind her. The click of the latch is soft but final. She walks away, her head high, ready to claim whatever comes next. Behind her, the empty classroom holds her story, a reminder that sometimes the quietest gestures carry the greatest weight. Ms. Grant enters her classroom after hours. The hallway outside, nearly silent. She notices the book on her desk immediately. The cover bright and unfamiliar, her fingers brush over the title, then pause as she sees the note tucked inside. She sits down, unfolding the paper with care, her breath catching as she reads Maya's handwriting. Thank you for making me work harder. The words are simple, but they land with a force she isn't prepared for. She leans back in her chair, the room around her suddenly feeling much larger, emptier. The red pens in her drawer seem out of place now, relics of a way of teaching that no longer fits. Ms. Grant looks at the book, then at the note again. Her eyes blurring with tears, she tries to blink away. She whispers to the empty room, I was wrong. The admission is soft, barely audible, but it's the first honest thing she's said in a long time. For a moment, she sits in the quiet, letting the truth settle in. The classroom, stripped of students and noise, feels like a confessional. She thinks of all the essays she marked, all the voices she doubted, all the potential she failed to see. The regret is sharp, but it's mixed with something else, a sense of relief, as if naming her mistake is the first step toward letting it go. Ms. Grant stands, smoothing the note and placing it back in the book. She closes the cover gently, her touch reverent. Before leaving, she glances around the room one last time, seeing it not as a place of authority, but as a space for growth, for change. She turns off the lights and closes the door, her whispered admission lingering in the shadows, a promise to do better if given the chance. The school library feels transformed, sunlight streaming through wide windows onto shelves lined with new titles. Maya's book sits at the center of a display, surrounded by novels and memoirs from authors whose stories reflect the faces of the students who now fill the room. A young black teacher stands at the front, her presence confident and warm. She holds Maya's novel in one hand and gestures to the class, inviting discussion about its themes, resilience, identity, the courage to speak. Students lean in, their questions thoughtful, their engagement genuine. They debate the meaning of a passage, share how it echoes their own experiences, and listen as classmates describe moments when they too felt unseen. The teacher encourages every voice, never rushing, never dismissing. The old reading list, once filled with distant, irrelevant classics, has been replaced by stories that matter here and now. In the hallway, the buzz is different. Students talk about what they're reading, recommending books to each other, arguing about characters and endings. The librarian rearranges shelves, making space for even more diverse authors. She smiles as she overhears a group of students planning to start a book club, their excitement infectious. MZ. Grant passes by the open library door, pausing just long enough to see the circle of students gathered around the new teacher. She recognizes the Energia classroom, alive with possibility. Students eager to learn because they see themselves in the material. For a moment, she feels a pang of regret, but also a quiet hope that this change will last. The bell rings, but no. One rushes to leave. The discussion continues, voices overlapping, every student eager to be heard. The school feels lighter, the air charged with the promise of new stories yet to be written. A new chapter has begun, and this time, every voice is welcome at the podium. Maya sits in the library, surrounded by a small circle of students, their notebooks open, pens poised. The room is filled with quiet anticipation, each young writer eager to share a piece of themselves. Maya listens intently as a boy reads. A poem about his grandmother, his voice trembling at first, then growing stronger with each line. She nods, offering encouragement with a gentle smile, her presence reassuring and patient. A girl shyly hands Maya a short story, her hands shaking just a little. Maya reads it aloud, pausing to highlight a vivid sentence, praising the courage it took to write honestly. The other students lean in, inspired by her words and by the sense of safety she brings to the group. Questions flow easily. How do you keep writing when you're scared? What if no one believes your story matters? Maya answers with honesty, sharing her own moments of doubt and the resilience she learned from her mother and grandmother. The circle grows closer. Each student, emboldened by Maya's example, she encourages them to write through their fears, to trust the power of their voices even when the world tries to quiet them. The stories shared are raw and real, some about family, others about struggle, all about hope. Maya sees herself in each of them, remembering the first time she dared to put her truth on the page. As the session ends, the students linger, reluctant to leave the warmth of the group. Maya collects their stories, promising to read every word. She reminds them that their voices matter, that change begins with the courage to speak. The students leave with heads held a little higher, notebooks clutched to their chests, ready. To write the next chapter, Maya remains, gathering the pages, her heart full. She knows the seeds of change have been planted, and she's proud to help them grow. Maya walks through the school hallway, and everything feels just a little different. Students who once brushed past her now pause, offering quiet nods or small, genuine smiles. Their eyes meet hers with a respect that wasn't there before. Silent acknowledgement of what she's accomplished and what she's endured. Stands by her classroom door, pausing just long enough to give Maya a brief approving glance before moving on. The balance of power has shifted, but the change is gentle, almost invisible to anyone who isn't looking for it. In the cafeteria, a group of students gathers around a lunch table, their voices low but animated as they discuss Maya's book. They pass the novel back and forth, sharing favorite passages, their faces lighting up with recognition and excitement. It's as if they've discovered a secret language, one that finally makes sense of their own experiences. The janitor walks by, offering Maya a small, knowing smiler, silent nod to the journey she's made and the barriers she's broken. Ms. Grant moves through the hallway, her steps slower than before, her gaze lowered. She feels the subtle shift, way students avoid her eyes, the way conversations hush when she draws near. The authority she once carried has faded, replaced by a quiet, persistent sense of loss. She stops at a bulletin board plastered with posters for Maya's book. The bright cover's a stark contrast to the faded flyers she once posted for her own classroom events. For a moment, she lingers, taking in the evidence of a new order. A student gestures from Maya to join them at the lunch table, a simple act of inclusion that speaks volumes. Maya accepts, her smile soft but confident, settling into the group as if she's always belonged. The room hums with a new energy, a sense of possibility that wasn't there before. The bell rings, but the hallway remains alive with whispered conversations and exchanged glances. The shift is subtle, but it's undeniably a quiet victory for dignity, belonging, and long overdue recognition. Evening settles over the house, golden light spilling across the kitchen table where Maya's family gathers for dinner. The meal is simple, but the mood is anything but ordinary. Maya's mother places her daughter's novel at the center of the table, the cover bright against the worn wood. She looks at Maya with a pride that words can't quite capture, her eyes shining as she ladles soup into bowls. Maya's younger brother reaches for the book, flipping through the pages with awe. "You really wrote all this?" he asks, his voice a mix of disbelief and admiration. Maya nods, a shy smile tugging at her lips. Her father, usually quiet, raises his glass and says, to Maya for telling the truth, even when it was hard. The family clinks their glasses together, the sound soft but full of meaning as they eat. The conversation drifts from everyday worries to memories of Maya's childhood, her first story written in crayon, her stubborn refusal to back down from a challenge. Laughter bubbles up, mingling with the warmth of the meal. Maya listens, feeling the weight of her journey lighten with every story shared, every gentle touch on her shoulder. After dinner, her mother takes Maya's hand, squeezing it with quiet strength. "You made us all proud," she says, "not just for the book, but for never letting anyone decide who you could be." Maya looks around the table, seeing her family not just as supporters, but as the foundation that made her courage possible. The evening ends with the family lingering at the table, reluctant to break the spell of belonging and pride. At her book, then at the faces she loves, feeling a sense of peace she's never known. In this quiet moment, she knows her story is not just hers. There's a two-dot morning light pours through Maya's bedroom window, painting golden stripes. Across her desk, she sits quietly, pen in hand, a fresh notebook open before her. The world outside is waking up, but inside, Maya finds a rare moment of calm. She writes slowly at first, her words deliberate, each sentence a step forward into a future she's finally allowed herself to imagine. Her phone buzzes with messages, students sharing how her story gave them courage. Teachers asking for advice on making their classrooms more welcoming. Strangers from distant places thanking her for speaking out. Maya reads each message with gratitude, but she doesn't let them distract her from the page. The act of writing, once an escape, is now a promise to herself and to everyone who has ever felt invisible. Downstairs, her mother prepares breakfast, humming softly, the sound drifting up the stairs. Maya's father calls out a reminder for her to bring a copy of her book to a neighbor who asked for it. Even the smallest routines feel changed, touched by the ripple of her words. The family's pride is quiet but ever present, woven into the fabric of their daily life. Maya pauses, looking out the window at the world beyond her street. She thinks of the students gathering in hallways, the teachers rethinking old lessons, the janitor's knowing smile, the girl who passed her the note in the cafeteria. She realizes that her story, once confined to a battered notebook, now moves through the lives of others, sparking conversations, shifting perspectives, inspiring new beginnings. She returns to her writing, the pen gliding across the page. The sunlight warms her shoulders, and she smiles, knowing that the change she started will continue to grow, quiet and unstoppable. Maya's journey isn't over, but she's no longer walking alone. The ripple continues, reaching farther than she ever dreamed.